Ladies and gentlemen, live from Rialto, California, Mark Flores presents to you the Pay-Per-View Wrestling Podcast. Today's topic, Clash of Champions 2016 Review and Analysis. And here's your host, Mark Flores. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another great episode of the Pay-Per-View Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Flores. Today's topic is Clash of Champions 2016. Now, we're going on Tuesday of the most recent pay-per-view on Sunday. I'm a couple days late, but I wanted to make sure to recap on the Monday Night Raw to see what else would transpire after the pay-per-view. Nothing much. That episode of Raw was pretty much lackluster. Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho's promo on the Chris Jericho's highlight reel was actually the most impressive thing to watch. Kevin Owens cut a good promo and then was able to entice Seth Rollins to come out out to the arena, tapping into social media, calling Seth Rollins dangerous. The most common misconception of Seth Rollins is that people speculate that the man's dangerous, and he honestly isn't. The man just goes at an accelerated rate, and I believe that people mistime their identity with Seth Rollins. They don't know that he with a select few of other WWE wrestlers is actually working at a very accelerated rate, a lot faster. Some things get mistimed just because the adrenaline's pumping, and just because they're going on all four cylinders, it just gets really intense in the ring. That's why no match goes perfect, and that's why you always leave with something every time you get out of that ring. Tonight's Clash of Champions Pay-Per-View Wrestling Podcast is brought to you by Game Swappers. Game Swappers, buy, sell, and trade your retro games and next-gen consoles. That's PS4 and Xbox One. You can come into contact with Game Swappers via Instagram at GAMESWAPPERS. That's GAMESWAPPERS. Game Swappers, buy, sell, and trade. Keep in mind, guys, that if you do share this podcast or any podcast on the Mark F Podcast channel, you'll be able to get 10% off towards your retro game trade-ins. Or if you're not in the interest of trading games, if you're not in the interest of actually purchasing games, you'll be able to get 10% off more towards your retro game trade-ins. Simply share the show, take a screenshot, and then show anyone that's working at Game Swappers that day, and you'll be able to get 10% off. You'll be able to get your discounts appropriately adjusted accordingly. So let's get into this, guys. We had Alicia Fox versus Nia Jax on the pre-show, but like I mentioned to you before, this was going to be a run-of-the-mill squash match. But we actually were able to be surprised and to see that Nia Jax actually took a bump. She took a very excellent-looking crossbody from Alicia Fox. And seeing Alicia Fox out in full display actually lets you know that these are the reasons why WWE keeps her on the roster. Maybe you could say, you could be that guy to say it's for diversity purposes, but you could definitely tell her moveset is very... it needs the appropriate person to do that kind of moveset. And that moveset entirely belongs to Alicia Fox. Long legs to do the scissors kicks, lengthy body to do cross bodies and make it look great on air. There's things like that actually, come into play. But to go into the next match, we all know that the Nia Jax Alicia Fox match was just going to be a run-of-the-mill squash match. So we also know that this is probably going to build up to something else with Nia Jax. Fact of the matter is once you start going away from the regular squash matches, you start going into a territory where you're going to have to start attacking the mid-card. And then little by little, you're going to have to start going into the upper tier stars. So this is a slow, methodical build from WWE, and I honestly think that they have something big planned because they're taking little steps, and this is going to build up. This is going to build up highlight reels. This is probably going to set up something between Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. I have a gut feeling about this. The build up, it's going to be slow pace like they're doing right now. Excuse me. The next match we have on the topic here, the next match we had after that was the Club versus the New Day. So we had this. We have the New Day still being over. I love the fact that they're over. And then we have the Club, Anderson and Gallows. Probably two of the hardest working guys in the tag team circuit today in the WWE, next to the Usos and next to the New Day. Boy, these guys have deserved the title for so long. They need it so bad because now you have so many things going wrong with the New Day. The fact is that creative is actually making them look like in-betweeners between babyface and heels. For the way they're actually winning matches like heels, it just doesn't do anyone justice. Appropriate identity is always great. It's good to see exactly where these people are at as far as who they are. Are they for the crowd? Are they against the crowd? Are they heels? Are they baby faces? You need to know that. That needs to be established. But in terms of the Club, you have certified heels that have been cutting great promos, that have had zero things go their way in terms of championship opportunities. Yes, they've received several championship opportunities, but it just becomes so redundant after every time they lose to the New Day. And I think WWE is trying to make these guys a very pristine tag team in terms of the New Day, but the Club would be a right chink in the armor against the New Day because these guys are the opposite-ended. When the New Day are total baby faces, the Club is the polar opposite of what the New Day is, and that creates a lot of tension. That creates a lot of tension within the fans when they need to decide who to pick for the tag team, for their tag team predictions. That goes along the lines of many factors in terms of polar opposites. So then you look at that and you see, wow, man, I really want to see these guys win this title. Now you have the Club honestly looking like the right candidates for the New Day because now the New Day are kind of feeling complacent. But in terms of the match had a great start. You had Anderson and you had Gallows actually clothesline Big E and then clothesline Xavier Woods, totally eliminating them for the first 5 or 10 minutes of the match. I thought the match had great back and forth sequences between the two, and I thought the Club dominated the majority of the match. But then you have the swift comeback brought on to the New Day, and what ends up happening is that the New Day end up winning and end up retaining. And the unfortunate thing is that the Club didn't win a Night of Champions. To me, I think that the Club, in terms of the WWE audience, has now ran its course. Now you have to kick the Club into emergency mode because now you have to rebuild these guys to be contenders again. Because how many times have they faced the New Day and ended up losing? These at SummerSlam and even at Battleground, this has been going on for a long time already. You need to... These guys, I can't explain any more than tell you, and I can't be more redundant than this, but these guys need to win the titles in order for them to establish and to keep their validity, because now you're going into Shining Stars territory when you talk about the Club, and it's unfortunate because these guys dominated IGWP, they dominated New Japan Pro Wrestling, they've had titles there numerous times. I think that the New Day would be a lot better. I like the New Day trying to attain the titles, not retaining them. I like it when they are going against someone that are actually holding the titles. But I'm all for the New Day actually holding the titles for as long as they have. I like that, and I like the fact that they are super over and they actually sell merch. And in the beginning of the New Day when it started, you wouldn't be able to say that. So it's kind of like a difficult crossroads for you to choose sides with, but if you look at it both ways, the New Day have retained their title, and this is great. Or if in terms of you think the New Day has been overused a bunch, and you think that they're in between, and you just don't like that, and you want the Club to win, I'm with you on that one too. I'm definitely at a crossroads with that. But the New Day ended up retaining against the Club. The next match that they had after that was a very impressive match. It was one of the matches I knew going into it was going to have a very impressive back and forth, a very impressive moveset from each one of them, from each one of the people I'm going to mention now, Brian Kendrick and TJ Perkins. The good thing about this match is from start to finish. You had TJ Perkins actually debuting his in-ring music, which is so like Mega Man, and it is so awesome. I myself looked at it and I was like, wow, he's really going for that. That's awesome. That's really cool. It's different. No one else is doing it, and it's honestly the most unique Titantron probably in WWE's history. It is totally a set from anything else than your typical dominating orchestra sounds, from your whole bubblegum pop songs, from Carmella's like Iggy Azalea copycat song. This has its own identity. This can build on so many levels with the fans to attract the younger audience to like the Cruiserweights, to attract people who like video games to like TJ Perkins and the Cruiserweight division. So many things. And like I mentioned, it attracts two different crowds. The fans that honestly appreciate TJ Perkins, and to attract fans to actually enjoy the Cruiserweight Classic. Brian Kendrick comes out to his song, and going into the match, you see a technical spectacle. Man, this match was awesome. You had the knee bar submissions. You had Brian Kendrick trying to take him into the captain's hook several times. You've seen the sliced bread move, and then you see TJ Perkins' aerial offense where he hopped onto the outside of the ring, only to double stomp Brian Kendrick's head. Very, very nice. The move is called the Wrecking Ball Dropkick, by the way. And then you had this spot where TJ Perkins did a Hurricane Rana to the outside of the ring instead of the inside. So Brian Kendrick is hanging on the inside part of the ropes, but TJ Perkins sets up a Hurricane Rana where Brian Kendrick then goes from the inside part of the ring, flips over the ropes, comes onto the outside of the ring, and takes a bump on the outside. I thought that was very impressive. I haven't seen that ever, actually, in terms of WWE, and I haven't seen it in any form of a Lucha Libre yet. Maybe I have to look back to see that, but that was the first time I saw it there in WWE. Both men put on a great match, ladies and gentlemen. I thought it was a very nice showcase to display just how great the Cruiserweight division could be. I thought it was impressive. Even to compliment them doing their thing on Raw. Cedric Alexander, Rich Swann, Lince Dorado, and Drew Gulak put on a great tag team sequence. It was one of the few appealing things about Monday Night Raw, but that's neither here nor there. But to tag on to what I'm saying about the Cruiserweights here, this is gonna be a reoccurring trend that you're gonna see. You're gonna see a lot of fast-paced action, nothing like the slow and lethargic movesets of powerhouses. So this is a great change of pace, if you will, for WWE. After the match, TJ Perkins ended up winning this match, but then after that, Brian Kendrick comes up to propose a handshake. Neither of them have really set their identities, but with Brian Kendrick actually headbutting TJ Perkins, you can then see that Brian Kendrick is now the heel, which is good because Brian Kendrick does a great heel. I honestly think so. So that sets up that. In regards to the Cruiserweight Championship match, so TJ Perkins retains his Cruiserweight Championship title. I thought the match was very impressive, so it's definitely good to see. Definitely. So now we have this match. This match was my guilty pleasure match, but due to the way it transpired, unfortunately I can't give it the 4-star match, 5-star match rating that I really wanted to give it, just because there was no conclusive ending on this. Sheamus and Cesaro, match 7. To prolong this feud in the match series as long as WWE has had, I really think that WWE doesn't know what to do with these two guys in terms of, I don't know, not even in terms of potential, but you're looking at it as this. You have Sheamus, hard worker, always puts in 100% every time he goes in the ring. It's very entertaining. If you boo him, that means he's doing his job. Then you have Cesaro. This guy's potential is limitless, even in terms for his age, because his moveset takes him over the top night in and night out. I think WWE has the right opportunity to take Cesaro over to SmackDown and trade him for Miz for an even swap. That would be cool with me. But in terms of this match in particular, so you have Cesaro coming back from 3-0 to actually tie it at 3-3. And I honestly look at this match and I see a lot of wear and tear from the two guys. They're taking a lot of bumps. Cesaro wore tons of athletic tape when it came to Monday Night Raw. But in terms of the match, I really thought it was a really impressive match. Tons of uppercuts. You had a bunch of spots going on the outside. The spinning corkscrew uppercut that Cesaro does too. Cesaro had a great cross body, and the great cross body spot that he performed on Cesaro too. And then Cesaro even performed the 619, which I thought was pretty awesome to see. This match had me on the edge of my seat for a long period of time, and I was like, well, damn, when is this going to end? These guys have been going at it for almost 20, 25 minutes. And the two of the strongest wrestlers in the WWE fought it out till they no longer could. So what ended up happening is that both of them take a bump to the outside, and then the ref ended up calling the match. Yeah, exactly. So he ends up calling the match, and then you're looking like, what the heck? Let these guys finish this match. What is honestly going on? Then the lines of reality are blurred because you don't see the referee put up the X. You don't see the ref. It's a lot of question marks going into that sequence at the end, and it plays into you, and it gets any wrestling fan agitated. It got me upset because I didn't know what the fuck was going on. So at that point, you see Cesaro and Sheamus just stop, and Sheamus is doing the heel thing by I still want to fight. Cesaro says he still wants to fight too. I thought it was going to culminate on Monday Night Raw, but no, it didn't. Mick Foley comes out and tries to bunch both of them up in a tag team, and I thought it was one of the stupidest things ever. Just let this whole feud end already, because I'm agitated. I'm not agitated with the fact that Cesaro and Sheamus need to wrestle every night. That's not, that's cool. I enjoy that effort. But when people behind booking and people behind storylines and creative decide, oh, you know what? This whole thing we've been doing for 7+ matches, let's have them go as tag teams on Monday Night Raw. Yeah, that should create some tension. That doesn't do it for me, because I need an ending. I need a conclusion with this. If anything, this brings an interest to the match so much to the point they just want everything to end already. Fans want this to end. Personnel probably wants this to end already. I bet you a lot of people are furious by this decision, including myself. So this match doesn't even end in anything. It just, the referee stops it and that's it. I saw this match twice already and I'm like, wow. This could have been a great match to look back on and be like, yep, Cesaro won. Yep, Sheamus won. He ended up taking it. He has a title shot. Nope. At a pay-per-view, you do not stop the match with the referee stoppage. It pissed people off at SummerSlam, and it pissed people off on the last two SummerSlams with that stupid referee bullshit going on with The Undertaker and Brock Lesnar. And then you had the Undertaker-Orton thing where Randy Orton got cut the hard way. And now this at a pay-per-view where you don't even have the referee, you have the referee calling it, and you don't even have the two strongest athletes in the business actually finish off a great match. That could have been 4.5, 5-star match. Anyway, the next match we have on after that was Sami Zayn versus Y2J Chris Jericho. This feud to me has been so half-assed that it looks so pieced together forcefully that I can see it a mile away. Sami Zayn needs an ultimate heel. Not saying that Chris Jericho isn't, but there hasn't been a lot of believability. The actual authenticity of this feud isn't validated. And what I mean by that, you don't really see a lot of passion between both guys actually doing this. So the reason I go into this phrase, the feud is only acceptable in the ring when it comes to these two because both of them can perform. I was totally out of it for this match But I love the fact that Chris Jericho's build up towards this match got me interested to actually see the conclusion of this. So then you see the match and you see a bunch of great spots from both guys. You see Chris Jericho doing his slow-paced, methodical moveset and all that. But then you also have, excuse me while I shuffle papers, cause a bunch of disruption on air. But you see Sami Zayn and Chris Jericho do their back and forth. This match is going, it's fast-paced. Fast-paced to a certain degree. I wouldn't say full throttle, fast-paced. But then you end up seeing that Sami Zayn loses to Chris Jericho. But why? The question I'm asking is that what more can you do with Chris Jericho now at this point in his career, other than if you're going to build him up to win against? So he beat Chris Jericho beat Sami Zayn. So now with his last opponent, Chris Jericho, in terms of Sami Zayn, Chris Jericho can now go up to Kevin Owens, perform a heel turn, I guess, against Kevin Owens and say, you know what, I beat your boy Sami Zayn, now I want a title shot here. It makes sense, but then that totally leaves Sami Zayn out. But then you see that Chris Jericho is actually feuding against, you actually see that Kevin Owens is actually feuding against Seth Rollins, so who knows what this is going to do. But what I really want to see is, I can honestly see that Sami Zayn has to stay at this upper to mid card, almost upper tier star, because I look at him and I see a great moveset. I see that. I just don't see the marketability, and I do not see the people getting behind him. I see a certain amount of people getting behind him, but what I need from WWE is I need him to be put behind a great program for him to be built up to be validated as a superstar. I see potential with Sami Zayn, but right now my ceiling on him is upper mid card, and that's about it. But it could change, and that's how, same thing with Daniel Bryan. It changes. Let's see what happens with the feuds leading up post Clash of Champions with these two. I don't want to push my fantasy booking to the limit yet, but I kind of see that this is going to leave both of them, both Chris Jericho and Sami Zayn, in a little bit of a rut till we see them either fight again or have them go their separate ways. The next match that we had was a fatal three-way for the women's title. It's Charlotte, Bayley, and Sasha Banks. This match between the three was enjoyable, and at the end of the day, it's about telling a story in the ring. And these three did it to the best of their abilities. It was one of the best things about this fatal three-way match is that there was a ton of momentum change. You had a bunch of back and forth. And it's hard to sometimes do that with a fatal three-way, because I've seen bad fatal three-ways, but I've seen great fatal three, fatal four-ways. I've seen that. So what we saw here was a bunch of pacing, a bunch of great spots. You had the moonsault by Charlotte that landed both on Charlotte and Bayley. No, excuse me. You had Charlotte doing the moonsault on top of Bayley and Sasha Banks. Sorry about that. You got myself in a little bit of a tongue twister there. So then we had that, but this whole match from start to finish was definitely, the accelerator was on the floor with all three of these women, and they put on a great show. You had the underdog Bayley, and then you had Sasha Banks, the former champ, and then you have the champ. This is typical great stuff this is storytelling 101, and these three ladies did it with great psychology. There was tons of tension in the ring. But then what ended up happening was to no one's surprise. Charlotte ends up retaining against both against both Sasha Banks and Bayley. So we have that. There's nothing there's nothing surprising in this situation, and that's that's not the unfortunate thing, but what you have is Charlotte. It's obvious that she's going to lose at a major pay-per-view. Maybe not Hell in a Cell, but maybe the one after that. So what does this do for Bayley? This is going to put Bayley in a different type of situation, because now on Monday Night Raw the following night, she ended up doing a squash match against someone, And Sasha Banks and Charlotte basically rekindled the rivalry, possibly by going one-on-one again. And according to last night's Monday Night Raw, they're going to go at it next week on Monday Night Raw. So this match was great to see. It's not, when a title change doesn't happen here, it really doesn't motivate it, or really doesn't bring about any more tension than it already has, especially since she was able to retain. So then that makes Charlotte 12-0 during title defenses, which I thought was an impressive number to bring up. The next match we had Roman Reigns versus Rusev for the U.S. Championship. And Roman Reigns versus Rusev was actually enjoyable to watch. The only downside to this situation in this match is that a great heel in Rusev doesn't have the U.S. title. But this situation had to be... The Rusev holding the U.S. title had to be finished sometime or another. And it's good because Roman Reigns needs the U.S. title more than ever, because not a lot of people are behind Roman Reigns. So they need to have him with the U.S. title to make sure there's believability within the character himself, to have people that were speculative on Roman Reigns, like I was a couple years ago, into believing the guy. The situation was most likely made to help out with issues WWE seemed to have. The one issue, and the most important one, is that Roman Reigns needed a title, like I mentioned, to help fans get behind him, since the norm nowadays is that people boo him on a regular basis. To me, I thought the match was a breath of fresh air, considering that we didn't have a match during SummerSlam. So it's great that they actually concluded this whole thing at a low-level pay-per-view in Clash of Champions. And Roman Reigns needed the title to complete the Shield trifecta, where all three members of the Shield actually had the U.S. title and the World Heavyweight title. I think that's a very interesting statistic. And with that statistic being shown, you actually know where the future lies within WWE. Who's going to take the leash of WWE and ride on with it. Rusev did a great job. He did a great job building the tension up with Roman Reigns in the ring, and I thought the ejection by Lana from the referee actually shows who was actually going to win this match, because when the manager leaves, that basically leaves both opponents there to face each other. So we had that. Roman Reigns ended up winning the U.S. Championship against Rusev. And, a lot of people are happy. Fans of Roman Reigns are happy. There's people that actually can see that, wow, Roman Reigns has actually put on a great track record of excellent matches. It's nothing you can take away from him because he physically shows it in the ring. He's getting better at promos, so he's taking those steps. And a long time, a few years ago, I wasn't really sold on Roman Reigns, but he has grown on to me because they actually are taking baby steps with him now. So that's good to see. The last match we have to review here is Kevin Owens versus Seth Rollins. The Kevin Owens versus Seth Rollins match was an incredible match to see. My expectations might have been a little high on this match, but I had all the appropriate reasonings for it. These two gentlemen know what it takes to put on great matches, and they certainly did that. They certainly did it at Clash of Champions. They're going to do it more times more than ever after this. But, the track record show on Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens that they can put on great matches in terms of NXT when they started and in terms of WWE now. The last couple of years, and for Kevin Owens, the last almost year and a half, he's been putting on great matches as well. This has been an anticipated battle between two former NXT champions. And a couple highlights from this match include an intense kick exchange sequence, and then both of them traded suckets and then proceeded to do their moves after that. I thought that was enjoyable. I applaud Seth and Kevin Owens for this match. And the reason why is because they put on a relatively fast-paced and safe match between the two of them, minus Seth Rollins getting injured. It happens. A rib injury is pretty much minor league stuff, considering that it wasn't really severe. I've seen worse happen in the ring. I didn't even want to mention the Cesaro almost breaking his neck on live television. I don't want to mention that because he's actually okay and he actually performed the following night. So I don't want to bring any bad mojo to that. But overall, so we look at Clash of Champions and we see a bunch of typical things. You see the heel actually retaining his title in terms of Kevin Owens and Charlotte. And then you see the thing that needed to happen in terms of Rusev losing the title to Roman Reigns. So that needed to happen more than ever just to get people motivated to go for Roman Reigns. And what I was discussing in my predictions of Clash of Champions 2016, I mentioned that WWE has a great opportunity to disassociate this pay-per-view with all the other low-level pay-per-views they have now. But unfortunately, it didn't do it. There wasn't enough great matches on the card. There wasn't enough great matches being displayed out and about, and too many people retained their titles that I expected to have lost, but it didn't end up happening. Overall, Clash of Champions was a B to me. I don't want to give it anything lower because they had a couple great matches actually in there, but due to the fact of certain people and certain wrestlers not winning and certain wrestlers retaining, it just didn't really. There wasn't enough. There isn't enough social interaction in terms of people talking about this match or talking about this pay-per-view in general. But other than that, I want to let you guys know is that this pay-per-view wrestling podcast has been presented by Game Swappers. Game Swappers, buy, sell, and trade your retro games and next-gen consoles. That's PS4 and Xbox One. You can come into contact with Game Swappers via Instagram at GAMESWAPPERS. That's GAMESWAPPERS. Game Swappers, buy, sell, and trade. Keep in mind, guys, that if you do share the Mark F. Podcast channel podcasts, any which one of them, you'll be able to get 10% off towards your retro game purchases at Game Swappers, online or in person. Or if you're not in the interest of doing so, you can also get 10% more towards your retro game trade-ins. Simply take a screenshot, share it, and you'll be able to get your discounts appropriately adjusted. Anyway, guys, I want to thank you guys for tuning into the Pay-Per-Review Wrestling Podcast. I'm Mark Flores, and this was Clash of Champions 2016. You guys have a good night.